every once in a while. But for the most part, we're over here and they're over there. I guess you call that separation of church and state. I guess you could say. But there definitely is a separation, and most of humanity is not aware of the ages of change. That's a seven. They won't change, but you don't know what to look for the ages of change. You're looking for them in the government. They're designed to get you food, water, sustenance, things like that, food stamps, good jobs. That's what they're designed to give you, a tangible situation for you to survive off of. They're not meant to change your humanity. And that's why the frustration sets in. Because you're frustrated that your leaders are not changing humanity. And it forces you to realize you've been looking for it in all the wrong places. Police can't change humanity. They're maintaining the streets. That's all they're doing. They can't make the humanity change. Military, the same thing. How military, they're here to protect you. They can't make you change. We are the agents of change. Christians, people who are followers of Jesus Christ, who has accepted his sacrifice for humanity. These are the people that are the agents of change. That's why you have all the community going to church. They understand it. You have many churches. They understand that we are the actual agents of change. These scientists can't do it. These secret societies haven't done it. Nothing, no parts of these, no organizations and no systems have changed, per se, humanity. We are those agents of change. We are the kingdom of change. Yep. And that's why we've been hindered all the time, because we are the agents of change. And there's people that do not want us to change your humanity. Now it makes sense. So what you got to do? You got to try to stop the agents of change. You don't see them stopping these politicians, do you? Because they are not agents of change. I needed to say that. That was meant to be said. But now, back on to the voodoo, the hoodoo, and the black community. Like I said before, it's not an attack against the African American community. It's letting people that are African American understand. You've overlooked this. Most of the history of America, you've overlooked it. I remember as a kid, people would talk about the root doctors. We call them root doctors in the South. Root doctors, people who work roots. That's what we call it in the South. They working roots on a person. That person got roots on them. That's a person that's cursed. That's what we call it in North Carolina. So see, I grew up around it. Before I even knew what witchcraft was, I knew about people putting roots on people. That's what we call it. So, like I said before, where I come from is just like, it's just as spiritual. It's spiritual like New Orleans. Like New Orleans. Everybody know New Orleans for voodoo, but they don't really know the Carolinas for hoodoo and witchcraft. Except if, people that are very educated do. They know about Dr. Buzzard. They know about his legacy, his dark legacy in the Carolinas. So I grew up around, it's safe to say that I grew up around root doctors, witches and warlocks where I'm from in Charlotte. It's there. But see, in the ghetto, it's not something that's identified. It's not a lane, if you will, that's identified. People know about it. Some people do. They know a little bit about it, they know of it, but they don't really know how it moves and how it operates in the ghetto. It's in the ghetto, in the hood where everybody at, smoking weed, hanging out, drinking, partying, shooting basketball, cooking out, all of that stuff that we do. The the witchcraft is there. You need to hear it just like that. The witchcraft is there while we're doing, all in the hood and everything. The witchcraft is there. Some people got family members and they're more educated on it that do witchcraft. And so they know, but they don't talk about it with their friends because it's taboo to talk about openly, culturally speaking, to talk about witchcraft seriously. In the black community, it doesn't get talked about seriously by the average individual. And so I say all that to say this. This will help you understand your surroundings, the things that you can't explain. A lot of this is witchcraft, man, in the hood. But because you think the witches are white, these pagans and Satanists, and you're limited to your understanding on the full spectrum of witches and warlocks, you think black people don't do it. They've been doing it. We've been doing this. You probably been around witches and you ain't even know it. You probably been around warlocks and you didn't know it. You probably got family members that are closet witches and you didn't know it. They're not gonna really tell you that because it puts a stigma on individuals. If people, it put all kind of stigmas. For people that don't understand it, they get extra. Witches and warlocks get extra stigmas. It's obvious evil there, but there are some things that are just superstitious that people just like, just interacting with them is gonna get you're gonna get you cursed and all kind of things like that, and then you just get repelled everywhere you go because you're practicing witchcraft. This is why many people that especially are in the black community do not tell people in their families or in their community that that's what they do. They don't put it on full display like that. But it's in every major city. Make no mistake about it. And you need to understand that in the spiritual grid. You need to understand this on the spiritual grid. Concerning the spiritual grid, that they're all in every great city you can think about. Cincinnati, any city you can think, San Diego, San Jose, everywhere you can think about in America, these great metropolises, any major metropolis that's on the map, any city that's on the map, any great metropolis has witchcraft, has witches and warlocks, high-ranking witches and warlocks in every major city. It's just like Christians. There's Christians in America in every major city. I don't care what city it is. There's no way that there's going to be no Christians. There's Christians in every city. So just use your brain. Well, if there's Christians, then there's witches and warlocks also in every major city. And because you think your culture doesn't totally embrace it, you might think it's not like that on the average, but it is. The culture of most countries are not going to totally embrace witchcraft. First, that's what you first need to know. They're not going to totally embrace it. The culture's not going to totally embrace it. Famous people are not going to totally embrace it in each country. That's what you first need to understand. So it's automatically an underworld. That's a 7. It's automatically an underworld. And with an underworld, how you expect to know about it unless you're educated on it, unless you're informed about it. I think this explains, and people don't want to accept it, but I think this explains why there's so much violence. There's so much. Yes. Witchcraft is a curse to a whole land. That's a 7. Yes. Witchcraft is a curse to a whole land. See, this is what witches and warlocks don't know. This is where they're not educated. They think, well, we curse who we feel needs to be cursed, or we curse for money, or we don't curse the whole country. Well, using witchcraft, this is the part that they don't know, because on our side, you basically get this information on the other side. What they don't know is when you use witchcraft as a collective community, you automatically cursed your country. Automatically. And God, you remember, this is God's world. These are God's laws. So if a country is using witchcraft in God's world and that God made under God's laws, what you think gonna happen? Nothing. They gonna just get to do it. They gonna just get to do it and just do. We have to coexist with them. I'm sorry, unfortunately. If you understand God's thoughts according to the Bible, if you understand God's history that he has had with humanity, witches and warlocks, that's a curse to any community and to a country and a nation. God wants it repelled. The Bible makes it clear. Suffer not a witch to live. This is what the Bible says, not me. That's why I believe in the Bible. It says, suffer not a witch to live. Let alone casting curses. Let alone, using witchcraft. Or it being active, or witchcraft being active in the community. God said they shouldn't even be alive. And I know many people don't want to hear it like that. I know you don't want, but this is not me. This is God's perspective. So if God feels that God's word says, suffer not a witch to live, what does this mean then? That all their activity is always backfiring, causing misfortune on the overall community. All of their activity. Their activity as a collective community, as a witch and warlock community of America, is causing spiritual backfires every single day. Now, see, they don't know that. They think that spiritual backfiring is limited to the people involved with the black magic that they're using. That's a 7. They think it only backfires spiritually on them or the people involved. That's not so. The next level of understanding is that this causes us all to be cursed. It causes us all to have misfortune, because God always operated like that. Pull the wickedness out the land. That's how God has always operated, unless these curses come upon you. Right or wrong? Pull this evil out from among you, or you will suffer. That's how God has always operated. So this explains why you have violence. I know you don't want to accept it, but this explains why you have violence in the ghettos. You have all this shooting and killing. They are a high percentage of the reason why they're evil. The reason why evil has not departed from the ghetto experience. There's a lot of witches and warlocks, and people are not identifying them. They're not identifying them in the ghetto. They're not identifying them in America. It is a curse to the land. It is a curse automatically to the entire community. Can you explain why all of this stuff is happening? I didn't say it was the full percentage of why it's happening, but it is a percentage of why it is happening. It is a percentage. Just like all this other stuff that's going on, it's a percentage as well. All these other evils that people do, you know the ones, not just homosexuality, not just lesbianism. It's many different evils that are being done, and they all have a certain percentage of why all of this is happening to us collectively. They have their part in it, basically, for why we're suffering. the witches and warlocks of America have their part for as far as for why we are suffering. They are part of the reason. I'm not saying 100% of the reason, but they are a percentage of the reason why we're suffering. You cannot practice black magic and witchcraft and expect a flourishing community. It's under the world. It's under God. So he gonna bless everything and then let witches and warlocks walk around. Use your brain. And this explains why there's so much evil and darkness and haze over the ghetto community. You don't want to give the proper credit and responsibility to the dark arts community for the evil that's in our community. You don't want to give them their proper responsibility. In other words, you're not in a position to make them take responsibility. Oh, I know better. I know if you got witches and warlocks, your land is going to be in a constant state of misfortune. That's a 7. If you have witches and warlocks in any country, there's going to be a level of misfortune and evil and destruction. I guarantee you, if witches and warlocks were weeded out of the ghettos, you would see a whole different change. These are people that stuck on evil. Keep that in mind. They don't call it evil, but on this side it is. Okay? It's this evil has to be acknowledged. It has to be. And if it's not acknowledged, then evil would not depart from the ghetto. The only way you're going to get rid of that, the evil that's in the ghetto, is that you start weeding out witches and warlocks. That's a 7. Now, see, that's something y'all ain't think about. Everybody want to talk about how to clean up. All these preachers even want to talk about how to clean up the ghetto. But you have not talked about the witches and warlocks. And before you start thinking I'm witch hunting per se, what have I been doing the whole time? I've been talking about the obvious problems in our community. This is just another obvious problem to me, spiritually. I mean, me being spiritual, this is an obvious problem to me. That's a 7. It's not an obvious problem to you because you're not spiritual. Yeah, you don't want to admit this. It goes beyond being politically correct. It goes beyond the what the mind can actually comprehend and prove. So this is where people start saying, well, that's a little crazy, that's a little out there. See how they got you refined? I'm being sarcastic. They got you refined to where you say, well, yeah, that's not sophisticated. That's not politically correct. That's not classy. To be praying in the Holy Ghost, speaking in tongues, that's not classy. You see what I'm saying? See how they got you? That's how they get you. You know what I'm saying? And then therefore it's no way in the world you're gonna even be able to have the eyes to see the evil that's in the ghetto. That's bringing curses, witchcraft, witches and warlocks, and I'm not picking on anyone in particular. I promise you, there's not a witch or warlock alive that I am actually literally singling out. This is about the laws of spirituality. If you got someone practicing that, it's a curse to the whole community. Because that's where that person is at. That's a 7. And God is going to curse where that person is at. Oh, you don't think so? So he's just going to have a beautiful, flourishing land where witches and warlocks are at. He dries it up. He makes it barren ground. Where the witches and warlocks are at becomes barren ground every time. Wherever they go, that's what's cursed. Wherever they at, that's what's cursed. How can they think about it? How can you practice curses, but ain't curses coming back? It's a part of the universe. Whatever you put out has to come back. They think because they're alive, it didn't come back. They think because they don't have no obvious misfortune that it didn't come back. It did come back. It came back on everybody. I know you don't want to believe. You don't know how deeply to believe that, do you? It came back on all of us, and now it's a whole culture of it being used against people like me and against Christians all over the country. Now they're using witchcraft everywhere, and now you got white people that use it, Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, all Cubans, every race of people, every ethnicity of people. You have to open your eyes and realize they're using witchcraft in every ethnicity community, in every community. There's no holy people that are just serving God as an ethnicity. White people are not totally serving God. African Americans and Africans are not totally serving God. Mexicans are not totally serving God. Puerto Ricans are not totally serving God. I have to do this so you can see. Asians are not totally serving God. No ethnicity is totally serving the Lord. And once you realize this, you realize you have God's people within every ethnicity. You got God people in the white ethnicity. You got God's people in the African ethnicity. You have God's people in the Mexican ethnicity. You have God's people in the Puerto Rican ethnicity, the Asian ethnicity. In every ethnicity there is, that God always has his people. But it works, but there's a full spectrum. The devil has his people among white people. The devil has his people among Africans and African Americans. The devil has his people among Mexicans. The devil has his people among Puerto Ricans. The devil has his people among Asians and every other race that you can think about. Now, when you understand this, you won't be painting anyone as a holy nation. There is no holy nation per se. And so now you understand how many workers of evil there are and how colorful it is. It's every ethnicity you can think about. They're all practicing. Every ethnicity practices witchcraft, practices voodoo, the dark arts, hoodoo, Santeria, all different types of witchcraft. See, I'm educated on it. You can't see something you're not educated on. God can open your eyes, but you have a responsibility to not be scared of stuff and shine away from stuff. You need to be educated on your enemies. You need to be educated on the enemies of God. You can't be walking around talking about it don't exist, and you got millions and millions of people doing it. Come on now. You got millions of people doing it. And you probably heard real stories in your life. I've heard real stories. Of people that practice a form of dark arts and things, and how it's true, and what they said came true. My grandmother went to see a spiritualist, and she told me what that woman said came true. So see, I only speak for myself. I've had hands-on experiences how I know it's real, and I know all of it's real. Now, what I think people are trying to articulate here in America is that it's not that when you say, well, I'm not going to focus on. I've heard many people say this to say something to this effect, that basically that's not going to work in my life. This is what they're trying to say, but they say they don't believe in it. That's what most Americans say. Well, I don't believe in it. It ain't gonna work if I don't believe in it. That's not true. Now, how effective it will be is a different story. That's according to your walk with the Lord. That's according to, uh, you know, your heightened level of spirituality. But whether you believe in it or not, they can practice it on you, and you could. Some people can suffer misfortune. Now, their best victims are those who are unaware. That's their best victims. When you're aware of witches and warlocks to the degree that I am, I can see them in stores. I can see them anywhere. I can have conversations. I remember the last time that I actually really engaged a warlock. But it was about a year ago, and we were just hanging out, and he seen me as such a nice person that he just told me who he was. He said, people are scared of me because I practice magic and I do curses and things like that. He said people are scared of him as a result. But no misfortune came to me from being around this warlock. No misfortune came to me from us interacting. But here's the part. I already knew he was a warlock. I already knew he was a witch. I already knew. Before he said it, I knew. I just looked at his head, and I think God just opened my eyes. Just his hair. I was looking at his hair and the aura around his hair, and I knew he was a warlock. And then he told me. I didn't say nothing to him about it. Just in case you think I'm one of them crazy people, go around witch hunting people. This is not what I'm. This is not intended for people to go out and witch hunt people. I need to say that, because it's not going to be effective anyway, according to your community. You're not going to have the right to do that anyway. You're not going to have the right to witch hunt. That's what they play off of. And see, this is a force of people that play off the fact that you can't hunt them down like that. But they can do everything to you without doing anything to you. They don't have to stab you. They don't have to shoot you. They still can bring misfortune into your life. See, in the older times, I think they were bringing misfortune on people and they were dragging them out. Like, yeah, we got to get rid of this. And so even from that time when people were literally witch hunting, communities were witch hunting, from that time, they've been underground. That's what you got to understand. If you don't understand anything else from what I've said, understand that the whole witchcraft community as a whole in America is underground. According to your world, in your commercial world, social platforms, it's an underground community. Some would say it's a secret society. The whole thing is, the whole witch and warlock community is like a secret society, a society or a community of people in secret. Okay? When you understand this, you understand nobody's going to pop out and say, hey, I'm a witch, unless they really like you and things to that nature. I've had 2 people come out and tell me that they were warlocks. So I've engaged people that's the difference between me and a lot of Christians that are not interactive with the community. They're more scared of it than they're more scared of it than they should be. And they're scared of it because they're uneducated. And that's the thing about it. It's all about education. So for me, in my life, because of God's love for me, I would say that foundationally, God's love for me, how he cares about me, everything that they're doing is backfiring way harder than it should be. And as long as they continue to do all their rituals and anything that they're doing, and that's the white community, the black community, the Mexican community, any community doing witchcraft against me, it's as long as they're continuing to do it, it's going to cause misfortune to your entire community. Not half of y'all, not just them, everybody. I am that high ranking. And see, the thing about this side or the spiritual world or among the spiritual people, there's an extreme level of ignorance of who's who and how powerful people are. And they find out too late. Most times in America, most of the times here, they find out too late that they've played with a high-ranking spiritual person. It comes to a point of no return, and they just felt that you probably was a goody two shoes religious person, and they find out that you attack spiritually as you're supposed to. And I know your preachers don't tell you to attack, do they? They don't tell you to spiritually attack, do they? The Bible makes it clear that we are in a war. Okay? They don't understand a lot of times who's high ranking on this side because they don't know. They don't have any experience with high ranking spiritual people. That's the luck. That's the advantage you really have. It's because with the situation, a lot of these witches and warlocks have no idea how high